What's worse than a feminist? A bunch of feminists. Hey guys, how's it going? Hunter Avallone here, and today we're going to be taking a look at this video on why we need feminism. Now at this point, any smart person would say the easy answer is we don't, but these girls I guess aren't smart because they're going to tell us why we need feminism. So, grab your cup of bleach, and let's begin.
I get called sweetie
You poor girl.
a lot. I get winked at work.
Sweetie was one thing, but now an occasional wink? No, that is where I draw the line. Alright? If this isn't oppression, then I don't know what is.
We're still making less than men in the workplace, and we're still like...
Alright, well we've already reached our destination of retardville. Surprise, feminists. The wage gap is a myth. The wage gap has been disproven many, many times. Just this year, a female economics Harvard professor took down the wage gap once again. She says that what's left of the pay gap is due to choices women make, such as how many hours they work, time they take off, and so on. Discrimination does not play a part in any existing pay gap. And ask yourself, if companies can get away with paying women less, how come they don't just hire all women to save some money?
You can't go for a walk at night alone because you're scared something might happen.
Well, you're not the only one that has to be afraid. Women are more likely to be a victim of rape, but men are statistically proven to be more likely to be a victim of any other violent crime. This is a serious risk that affects both genders, not just women. And secondly, how on earth is feminism helping you not be afraid anymore? Aren't feminists the ones who are telling you not to protect yourself because that would be victim blaming?
There's still unrealistic expectations for women to look a certain way that don't exist for men,
Well, this girl's just making crap up, and I don't think she did any research at all. Unrealistic standards certainly do affect men as well. In fact, an Australian study recently revealed that women's standards of attractiveness are just as unrealistic as men's. In the United States alone, 10 million men will suffer from a clinically significant eating disorder. Subclinical eating disorders are nearly as common among males as they are for females. Unrealistic standards affect both women and men. Don't make a people issue into a females only issue.
I still can't walk down the street without someone harassing me, but if I walk down the street with my boyfriend, it's totally different because men respect the fact that there's another man by me, but they don't respect if I'm alone.
Now this is actually a pretty good point, and I agree that men who whistle and catcall women are being rude and disrespectful. However, it also depends on what you consider to be harassment. If it's anything like what these people considered harassment...
How are you this morning? Have a nice evening. Hello, good morning. God bless you. Have a good day, all right?
Odds are men just assume you have a boyfriend and don't want to try to flirt or pick up on you. Either way, catcalling is rude, but it's far from oppression.
Feminism started, women were fighting for these intense, basic human rights. They wanted to be able to work and get educated. They wanted to be able to vote.
And I wonder what those women would think of the modern day feminist movement now, complaining about sexist glaciers and sexist string cheese.
Expecting to be able to go to school and be protected from sexual assaults and to know that people are going to give a shit happens to you and take action, even if he's a star football player, being able to be paid as much as a man. Those are basic human rights too.
First off, it's illegal to pay women less. The Equal Pay Act was passed in 1963, so you have that basic human right already. So please, feminists, stop whining about things that have been factually proven false. And secondly, a few stories doesn't mean that college as a whole doesn't care if you've been assaulted. In fact, it's usually the opposite. A few years ago, a young man was expelled from college after a false rape allegation. He later came back with strong evidence that he had not assaulted the woman, and that he was possibly even the victim. However, he was out of luck, because the school imposed a time limit on the introduction of new evidence. While men's lives are constantly ruined over false rape allegations, people always rally behind the victim, even if there's little to no evidence. Again, a few awful things that happened at a few colleges doesn't mean that college as a whole doesn't care if you've been assaulted.
How ridiculous is this? Sure, you can go to college, but if you get raped, it's your own damn fault. No, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Well, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard also. How did a few terrible things that happened at a few colleges lead you to the absurd conclusion that if you're raped, it's somehow your fault? That doesn't make any sense at all.
You can get kicked out of college in an instant for plagiarizing, but if you're accused of rape, it takes the person that's accusing you has to give an arm and a leg and go through so much trauma just to even get them to think about it.
Alright, well never mind what I said before. Now this is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. The victim does not need to give an arm and a leg to get them to think about it. They do, however, need to present some strong evidence because rape is a very serious crime. Much more serious than plagiarism. If someone plagiarized something, it would be very easy to figure out by comparing the original to the plagiarized piece. However, rape is much more serious, complicated, and requires more evidence, especially with the rise of false rape accusations. You're pretty much saying that people should just believe you because you said so. You can't compare a crime like plagiarism to a crime like rape. One will end with a fine, the other will end with jail time and a ruined life.
Just because she didn't say it doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
You're right, it may have still happened even if she didn't say anything. But if she didn't say anything, she didn't report it. And if she didn't report it, there's no record. So from a legal way of looking at things, it technically hasn't happened. That's why it's very important to report whenever you've been assaulted so that the law can work to catch the ones who committed the crime.
Every one of the women that are close to me have been violated either physically or emotionally, like seriously, in a way that's completely based upon their gender.
Then why in the world are they just chilling there instead of going to the police and reporting it? I want to end rape and assault just as much as you, but the first step is reporting it. Feminism can't do anything for these women, but the police can. So why are you women taking shelter in a movement that is useless instead of going to the people who can actually help you? Maybe it's because the feminists are the ones telling you that no one will believe you.
Inequality and misogyny just sort of seeps into how we learn how to be people, how we learn how to relate to each other.
And there's the core issue with feminism right there. Inequality and misogyny have not seeped into how we live our lives. It's only the feminists telling you that. The anti-feminists, such as myself, would never tell a woman that her life's gonna be filled with inequality. But the feminists would.
Understanding like the intricacies of how these things work, it's horrifying, I think.
Yeah, horrifying. Kind of like your video. Broad generalizations, lacking in facts, that honestly is pretty horrifying. So hear this once and for all, and you're welcome to be triggered. The wage gap is a myth. There's unrealistic standards for men also. Catcalling isn't the same as oppression. Men are more likely to be a victim of a violent crime. College as a whole doesn't ignore victims of assault. And the feminist movement has gone from this to trying so hard to be the victim in a world where they aren't. I'm Hunter Avallone. See you next week.